today feels heavier than most. Three remarkable voices, each from a different corner of American culture, have fallen silent. Their stories shape the way people think, create, and remember. They stood in different worlds on the stage, on the page, on the fairway, and in the heart of global theater, but their influence crossed borders and generations. As their final chapters close, they leave behind legacies built on courage, imagination, and a quiet devotion to their craft. Tonight, this documentary pauses to honor their journeys, reflect on their impact, and preserve the echoes of lives that will not be forgotten. These are the stories of four legends who left the world today. Tragic news is confirmed today. Sir Tom Stoppard, one of the most gifted playwrights of his generation, has passed away in London. A quiet sadness settles over the theatre district. The lights outside the National Theatre glow a little softer. Tonight, for decades, his words filled these halls with laughter, thought, and wonder. Now, people gather in small groups, speaking gently, remembering the man whose voice changed their understanding of storytelling. Sir Tom Stoppard died on November 29, 2025. He was 88. His passing closes a final chapter of a career that stretched across stage, radio, television, and film. For many, it feels like the end of a literary era. His plays reached far beyond the theater. They touched questions of identity, freedom, and the meaning of being alive. Even now, his lines echo in classrooms, rehearsal rooms, and memory. Stoppard was born to Guslar in 1937, in what was then Czechoslovakia. His early years were shaped by fear and war. His family escaped the growing threats of the time, moving first to Singapore, then to India, and finally to England. He was still a boy when he arrived in the United Kingdom, carrying only fragments of his past and the hope of a safer future. That journey would later shape the themes in his writing, questions about who we are and where home truly begins. As a young man, he first worked as a journalist. He wrote stories, edited small pieces, and learned how to observe people. He developed a rhythm, a sharp sense of language, and a quiet curiosity about life. But he knew his passion stretched beyond reporting. He wanted to create worlds, not just document them. Soon, he began writing radio plays, exploring characters with wit and philosophical depth. In 1966, he completed a script that he hoped might find a life on stage. It was playful and strange, built on Shakespeare's Hamlet but told through the eyes of two side characters. He called it Rosencrantz and Guildenstern Are Dead. When it premiered in 1967, the theater world took notice. The play was sharp, funny, existential, and bold. It asked questions about fate, identity, and choice. Audiences had never seen anything quite like it. Overnight, Stoppard became a major voice in British drama. Throughout the 1970s and 1980s, his work continued to shape modern theater. Plays like Jumpers, Travesties, and The Real Thing blended philosophy, comedy, and emotion in ways few writers could match. His style became unmistakable: sharp dialogue, big ideas, deep human feeling hidden beneath humor. He could make an audience laugh, then reflect, then feel a sudden wave of understanding. This balance was his signature. By the 1990s, he was recognized as one of the most important living dramatists. Yet he never stopped evolving. His play Arcadia became one of his most beloved works. It shifted between past and present, exploring love, science, and the fragile patterns of history. Critics called it a masterpiece. Students studied it. Directors around the world staged it with passion. Even today, many consider it one of the greatest plays of the late 20th century. Away from the spotlight, Stoppard cared deeply about human rights. His own story, Born into Danger, Saved by Escape, shaped his worldview. He wrote about censorship, government control, and the fight for personal freedom. He often supported dissident writers, especially those from Eastern Europe, in interviews. He spoke gently but firmly about the importance of truth. He believed words could protect people. He believed stories could expose injustice. As his reputation grew, honors followed. In 1997, Queen Elizabeth II knighted him for his contributions to theater. In 2000, he received the Order of Merit, one of the highest honors in the United Kingdom. Audiences admired him. Actors respected him. Writers studied him with awe. And yet, those close to him often described him as modest, gentle, and quietly humorous. He continued writing into his later years, producing screenplays and stage works that carried the same precision he was known for. He co-wrote the screenplay for Shakespeare in Love, which won 7 Academy Awards. Even in film, he brought depth and lightness to complex stories. As news of his passing spread, tributes began to appear across social media. Actors who once performed his lines shared memories filled with gratitude. Directors described him as a giant of thought. Theater lovers posted pictures of their favorite quotes, their old tickets, their programs from plays that shaped their lives. One tribute from a longtime collaborator read, Working with Tom felt like being invited into a new universe. He didn't just write characters, he wrote human souls, another message from a young playwright said. His words gave me permission to think differently. He showed me theater can be brave and tender at the same time, a family statement shared later. In the day offered a quiet reflection, Tom lived through history and wrote with a heart full of curiosity. He was grateful for every stage, every audience, and every conversation his work created. In the theater community, small acts of remembrance began to unfold. Several venues dimmed their lights in his honor. On the South Bank, a few actors gathered near the National Theater and softly performed lines from Arcadia. A hush fell over the crowd as they spoke. For a moment, it felt as if Stoppard himself were there, smiling gently, listening to words that had once lived only in his mind. His passing invites a look back at what made his work so powerful. Stoppard understood that stories can be both simple and profound. He believed that laughter and sadness often walk side by side. His plays were puzzles, but they were also windows into the human experience. He wrote about love, loss, identity, time, and truth. He used language like a tool, shaping each sentence with care. For audiences, his work felt alive. As the years passed, he also confronted questions within his own life. He learned about his family's history, including the tragic loss of relatives during the Holocaust. This discovery deepened his sense of identity. It shaped his later plays, many of which carry themes of memory and heritage. He spoke openly about the emotional weight of this knowledge. It became a source of honesty and vulnerability in his work. Through each chapter of his career, Stoppard remained dedicated to the craft of writing. He was known to rewrite a single page dozens of times. He cared about rhythm, meaning, and clarity. Those who worked with him often said he approached every script with the same excitement he had decades earlier, when he sat over a typewriter. As a young journalist dreaming of something more, his influence today reaches far beyond England. His plays have been translated into dozens of languages and performed on hundreds of stages. Students study him in schools from New York to Tokyo. Directors use his scripts to teach pacing, language, and emotion. His work helps shape what modern theater looks like, sounds like, and feels like. Very few writers can be compared to Shakespeare or Shaw. Stoppard was one of them. As the evening settles, people across the world reflect on the legacy he leaves behind. Many describe him as a writer who made them feel smarter, braver, and more alive. Some remember him for the humor that hid truth inside jokes. Others think of the quiet sadness in his more reflective lines. But almost everyone agrees on one thing: he changed theater forever. His passing marks the end of a remarkable journey. But the words he wrote will continue to speak. They will continue to challenge, comfort, and inspire. His plays will be revived again and again, each time offering new meaning to new audiences. That is the power of his legacy. His voice does not fade, it grows. One director wrote, "The stage is darker tonight, but his light is still here." Every actor who steps forward carries a little of his brilliance. In rehearsal rooms, young performers read his lines with trembling excitement. In theaters, audiences lean forward, caught in the worlds he created. In classrooms, students open his pages and find ideas that still feel urgent, still feel human, still feel alive. That is the mark of a true artist. His work remains timeless tonight, as the lights dim and the seats empty. A gentle silence fills the theater. It is the kind of silence that follows a great performance, the kind that says thank you without needing words. Sir Tom Stoppard gave the world art, courage, and truth, and now he rests. But his voice continues, his stories continue, and his legacy lives wherever people gather to listen, to think, and to feel. Sir Tom Stoppard will be remembered as a playwright who changed the stage, a thinker who defended freedom, and a storyteller who believed in the power of human imagination. His work remains a gift to the world, a reminder that words can light the darkest corners, and stories can shape the way generations understand themselves. Farewell to a legend of the theater. His final curtain may have fallen, but his echoes remain, carried gently through time in every heart he touched. Tragic news has been confirmed from Missouri, where the quiet hills of the Ozarks feel a little heavier today. Daniel Woodrell, the writer who carried the soul of the Ozarks into American literature, has passed away. He died on November 28, 2025. Leaving behind a body of work that reshaped rural storytelling. His absence has created a silence that many say feels almost physical, like a missing voice echoing through the region he wrote about for decades. In the small towns he often wrote about, people speak his name with a mix of pride and sorrow. They say he saw their world clearly, its beauty, its violence, its tenderness, and he never tried to change it into something it wasn't. He described life as it was lived, not as others wished it to be. For many readers, that honesty became his greatest gift. Woodrell was born in 1953 in Springfield, Missouri. He grew up surrounded by the landscapes that would later shape his fiction: rolling hills, worn houses, quiet roads, and stories whispered in small communities. He understood the complexities of rural life long before he put them on the page. His childhood was marked by strong family ties, community traditions, and the quiet struggle to build a life in a place untouched by the speed of the outside world. As a young man, he left home to join the Marines, but returned shortly after an injury. The return wasn't a setback, it became a turning point. He turned to reading, then to writing, and found a sense of direction he had never known before. His early work was raw but filled with promise. By the time he published his first novels, his voice was already unmistakable. He called his style country noir, a blend of dark atmosphere, emotional clarity, and intimate character work. His books did not rely on glamour or fantasy. Instead, they focused on ordinary people caught in the sharp edges of life: poverty, hope, love, danger, and redemption. His stories were slow-burning and honest. They revealed the fragile line between survival and loss. Critics praised him for his precision and restraint. Readers praised him for his empathy. His most famous novel, Winter's Bone, brought national attention. The story of Dolly, a teenage girl searching for her missing father, captured the harsh beauty of the Ozarks in a way the world had never seen. When the book was adapted into a film in 2010, it brought Woodrell's name to a wider audience. The movie earned multiple Academy Award nominations. Many viewers first discovered the Ozarks through his eyes, but for Woodrell, the sudden attention never changed who he was. He continued to write in the same thoughtful way. He lived in the region he wrote about, staying close to the people and places that formed the heart of his work. He spoke often about the responsibility of writing honestly, especially about communities often misunderstood by outsiders. He made the Ozarks feel alive. One reader wrote in a tribute posted online, "It was like he opened a window, and we could finally see the truth behind the hills." Family members released a brief statement hours after his passing. It read, "Daniel loved this place, and he loved the people who lived here. He wrote their stories with compassion and clarity. We are grateful for every reader who understood his heart." Friends describe him as quiet, thoughtful, and deeply observant. He was known to pause in conversation, considering his words carefully before speaking. He listened more than he talked. When he wrote, he did so with discipline and focus. Many of his novels were short, but each was crafted with precision. Every sentence carried weight. Every character felt real. Woodrell's work explored themes of survival, family loyalty, and the emotional costs of poverty. He never romanticized hardship. Instead, he wrote about resilience. His characters fought for dignity, for love, and for the right to continue. His books often ended in silence instead of triumph. That silence allowed readers to imagine their own truths. In literary circles, he was admired for his craftsmanship. Fellow authors praised his economy of language. They said he could create an entire world in a few lines. One writer said during a radio tribute, "Daniel understood that writing isn't about big scenes. It's about small moments that carry big meaning." He was also known for portraying women with care and depth. Many female characters in his novels were shaped by strength and quiet endurance. They faced difficult choices without losing their sense of humanity. Critics often noted the respect he showed for their struggles. As news of his death spread, bookstores across Missouri placed his books in their windows. Libraries shared photos of his works arranged under soft lighting. Teachers talked about his impact on young writers. Social media filled with quotes from Winter's Bone to motto read, "And the Maid's version." Each post reflected a different memory. Each memory carried its own weight. Midway through the day, a local Ozarks musician posted a message that quickly spread. His stories sounded like home. Not perfect, not polished, but true. The simplicity of the message captured what many felt. Another tribute came from an actor who starred in the film adaptation of his work. The message read, "Daniel wrote about people who rarely get a voice. He gave them dignity. He gave them depth. He gave them the chance to be seen." The post ended with a photo of the Ozarks at dusk, hills fading into shadow. The same image that lived in so many of Woodrell's books. Woodrell's passing is felt most strongly in the places he wrote about. Rural communities often feel invisible to the wider world, but his books showed their complexity. He wrote about their hope as much as their hardship. He wrote about the ways families protect each other. He wrote about how small towns remember everything good and bad, and how the past never really disappears. For many, his stories were a form of record. They captured the quiet struggle and deep pride of the region. They captured the music of local voices, the texture of unpaved roads, and the stillness of winter mornings. He allowed readers to step inside a land rarely explored in mainstream fiction, and once inside, readers discovered something raw and beautiful. His influence reaches far beyond one region. Modern writers across the country cite him as an inspiration. They admire his honesty, his discipline, and his storytelling. Courage, his books are studied in writing programs, his style tight, intense, atmospheric, shaped a new kind of American realism. It encouraged others to look closely at their own hometowns, their own hidden histories. As the day ends, memories of Woodrell continue to surface in Missouri. A few locals gathered near a small independent bookstore he once visited. They placed flowers beside a stack of his novels and stood quietly for several minutes, no speeches, no applause, only a shared moment of respect. Another group lit candles near a wooded trail he often walked. They said they wanted to honor him in the place that inspired so much of his work. The light flickered against the trees. It felt simple, sincere, and deeply fitting. His legacy is tied to truth. He wrote with care. He wrote with courage. He wrote with empathy. His characters were often caught between choices that had no easy answer. They faced consequences, not resolutions. But in that complexity, readers found a reflection of real life. They found themselves. Daniel Woodrell will be remembered for capturing the soul of a place often overlooked. His stories were shaped by compassion, shaped by the land, and shaped by the people who lived in its shadow and sunlight. He gave the Ozarks a voice that will continue to echo through literature. His final chapter may be written, but his words remain. They rest on shelves, in homes, in classrooms, and in hearts. They continue in every reader who found comfort in his honesty and strength in his characters. Tonight, the hills he once described like quiet, the roads he wrote about stretch into the dark. But somewhere in that quiet, his stories still breathe. They linger like the last note of a song carried by evening wind. Daniel Woodrell leaves behind a legacy of truth, empathy, and unforgettable storytelling. And long after his passing, his voice will continue to guide those who listen to the heart of the Ozarks and remember the writer who made its silence heard. The news arrives quietly, traveling through the golf world like a soft wind brushing across an empty fairway. Frank Fuzzy Zoller has passed away, leaving behind a game he helped brighten with his laughter, his talent, and his unmistakable charm. The news was confirmed on the morning of November 27, 2025, and it brought with it a wave of sadness across clubhouses, sports networks, and among fans who grew up watching him play. He was 74 years old, and for many, it felt like losing a familiar voice on a sunny afternoon. Zoller was more than a golfer. He was an entertainer wrapped inside an athlete's frame. Someone who walked onto the course with the confidence of a champion and the warmth of a friend. His life, shaped by both victories and challenges, became a portrait of how sports can feel human, even gentle. In a world often pressed by pressure and expectation, he was born on November 11, 1951 in New Albany, Indiana, a small town that shaped his early sense of humor and simplicity. His friends used to say that he could make anyone laugh, even when he was losing a match or grinding through a practice session. That sense of ease followed him throughout his career. It became a signature as recognizable as a swing that helped him rise to the top of professional golf. Zoller began building his name long before he wore a tour badge. At the University of Houston, he showed he had both skill and grit. Coaches recall a young man who practiced long after others went home, often joking to himself, as if keeping his spirits high was part of the training. He always had a smile ready, a former teammate once said. Even when things were tough, he just kept going. His breakthrough arrived in 1979 at the Masters tournament. It was one of the most iconic wins in modern golf history. Zoller entered Augusta as a promising young player, but he left as a champion. It was only his first appearance at the Masters, and yet he managed to take home the green jacket, becoming the first debut winner in 4 decades. The victory stunned commentators and inspired fans. People admired his fearlessness, his steady mental state, and his easygoing attitude under enormous pressure. His second major came in 1984 at the U.S. Open. The course was tough, the conditions brutal, and the competition fierce. But Zoller remained calm, relying on his rhythm and his strategic mind. Fans remember the final round as a display of patience and precision. After he won, he dedicated the victory to everyone who believes in taking life one shot at a time. It quickly became one of the quotes associated with his legacy. Zoller's career stretched through the 1980s and 1990s. He won tournaments around the country and earned a reputation for playing with both intensity and joy. Television crews often focused on him not only because he was winning, but because he made the game feel fun. He joked with spectators, teased announcers, and smiled through difficult rounds. It gave golf a different kind of personality, lighter, friendlier, more open. At times, his humor drew mixed reactions. The sports culture was changing, and the gap between old traditions and new expectations sometimes created difficult moments. But even when criticism came his way, Zoller responded with the same recognizable calm. Fuzzy never stayed angry, a longtime friend once said. He took mistakes seriously. But he didn't let them define him. His personality made him beloved among fans and players alike. Younger golfers often said he made them feel welcome, as if they were joining a large, extended family rather than entering a high-pressure career. Rising players admired him for offering guidance without arrogance. He treated us like equals, even when he was a legend in the room. One PGA golfer shared after learning of his passing. He spent nearly 3 decades on the PGA Tour, collecting wins, building relationships, and showing up as one of the friendliest competitors on the course. When he later transitioned to the Senior PGA Tour, he brought the same energy, still smiling, still joking, still swinging with purpose off the course. Zoller worked on several business ventures, including his own brand of spirits. The Fuzzy's ultra-premium vodka label became a playful extension of his personality. Fans joked that it was the only vodka sold with a built-in smile. The brand found success across the United States, and Zoller enjoyed meeting customers, signing bottles, and sharing stories from his career. His life was grounded by family. He married his wife, Diane, in 1975, and they raised 4 children together. The couple stayed strong through the ups and downs of sports life, travel schedules, injuries, long weeks away from home. Friends often said that Diane was the calm center of his world. Zoller spoke often about how much he depended on her support. "She kept me balanced," he once told a reporter. "She's the foundation of everything." The couple built a home filled with laughter. Their children grew up watching their father compete in some of the world's biggest tournaments. They learned to walk the fairways, to show respect for the game, and to understand that winning was never the only thing that mattered. Zoller's daughter once said, "Dad taught us to love life, not just win at it." In his later years, Zoller split his time between playing exhibitions, supporting charities, and enjoying quiet days with his family. He became a strong advocate for youth golf programs, often emphasizing that the sport could help young people learn patience, discipline, and confidence. His enthusiasm made him a popular guest at charity events, where he donated both time and resources. Many organizations credit him with helping expand outreach programs that still support young athletes today. Even after leaving the spotlight, his humor stayed intact. One of his close friends recalled a moment that summed up Zoller's playful nature. During a private charity golf day, Zoller walked up to a nervous beginner and said, "Listen, kid, the ball doesn't know who you are, so relax and it might forgive you." The line earned laughter and the day suddenly felt lighter. But behind all the jokes and easy smiles, Zoller carried a powerful competitive spirit. He trained tirelessly, studied courses carefully, and practiced with intention. He knew what it took to win, and he respected the process. People closest to him often said that his discipline was a part of his personality. The public didn't always see. Fuzzy wasn't just fun, said a former caddy. He was focused, really focused. The smile was real, but so was the work. As the years passed, the sports world began celebrating Zoller as not only a champion, but also a symbol of a different era in golf. He belonged to a generation that balanced competition with camaraderie. Players pushed one another, but they also shared meals, talked about life, and embraced the sport as a community. Zoller embodied that spirit more than most. The news of his passing brought heartfelt messages across social media. Former players wrote long tributes, journalists shared memories from interviews, and fans posted photos from tournaments that captured him smiling beside the ropes. One tribute read, "Fuzzy didn't just play the game, he warmed it." Another said, "We lost a champion, but we also lost a friend." Perhaps the most emotional words came from his daughter, who wrote, "He made life brighter. Anyone who met him knows what I mean." Her message spread quickly, inspiring thousands of reactions from people who felt the same. At his hometown golf club in Indiana, members gathered for a quiet evening ceremony. They placed flowers at the entrance, lit candles, and laid a green golf towel across a bench where he often sat during his visits. The moment was simple, but it carried a deep sense of gratitude. The sports world also honored him in real time. PGA commentators paused during broadcasts to reflect on his life and achievements. Some shared stories of how he lifted their spirits, cracked jokes during interviews, or helped introduce them to the gentler side of the sport. A senior analyst said, "You didn't have to watch golf to appreciate him, you just had to see him smile." But Zoller's legacy reaches far beyond his victories. His life became a reminder that sports can serve as a bridge between competition and joy. He showed that an athlete can be fierce and kind at the same time. His tournaments were not just events, they were experiences filled with energy and warmth. He also inspired generations of golfers who admired his boldness and grace. Some studied his swing, others learned from his patience, and many adopted parts of his attitude toward pressure. Parents who raise children in golf often use Zoller as an example of how to strive for success without losing yourself along the way. Even today, Many young players say they grew up watching clips of his master's victory, learning how he balanced confidence with calm. The famous scene of him raising his putter with a gentle grin remains one of the lasting images of his career. In quiet moments, those who knew him best say he simply wanted to make the world lighter. He knew life could be heavy, and he felt that laughter was one of the simplest gifts he could give. Friends recall how he could diffuse arguments, ease tension, and remind people that being alive was something worth celebrating. As the chapter of his life closes, the memories open. They show a man who embraced challenges, shared kindness, and played with heart. His humor still echoes in the minds of those who heard it. His victories still inspire those who dream of finding success, and his legacy still stands tall, like a flag fluttering gently under a clear sky.